For this week's video, we've got a set of 20 colour slides bought by a tourist who is visiting Hong Kong. Now our first scene is this view over Central. We're looking down the peak tram tracks here. I can see the Helena May on the left, and these four towers, 1, 2, 3, 4, these all belong to St. Joseph's School on Kennedy Road. Downhill from that I can see the Murray Barracks are still standing, not for much longer though. And across the road the Royal Navy has lost a lot of their old dockyard. If you remember back in those 1909 panoramas we were looking at the dry dock, well that's all been filled in, and this is the new Harcourt Road running across here. That will be completed in 1961. So we get the feeling that this is a photo probably taken around the start of the 1960s, and we get confirmation here. So this is a building being demolished. This is the old Butterfield and Swire building, and the Swire's archive have confirmed that it was indeed demolished in 1960. Now there's something odd about this site, something that's been a mystery. Let's just swing over to the left where we can see this tower here. So this tower belongs to the old Queen's building. Remember, it's 1960, but in 1963 the new Mandarin Hotel will open on this site. So it just gives you an idea of the typical pace of redeveloping a building site in Hong Kong. You know, time is money. They didn't hang around. But coming back here, so in 1960 this is demolished. The next building on here, also a hotel, the Furama Hotel, but that doesn't open till 1973. So I've always just found it a bit strange how it stayed empty for so long. If you know why, please do let us know in the comments below. The 1960s, then, they were a time of huge change for Central. If you've got my first book, just have a look at the last picture in there. It's another view of this scene, but from 1965, so only 5 years later. But I think you'll be surprised just how much change there's been. Looking across the harbour, we can see the peninsula here. We've got the clock tower, the KCR terminus. We've got the Kowloon wharves here. This is where we saw those elephants being unloaded. And then up here, 1, 2, 3, these white buildings. These were the police married quarters on Canton Road, and they're a good landmark. Because in our next slide, 1, 2, 3, it's those same married quarters again. Now they're not the focus of the picture. The picture is definitely looking at this boat here in the foreground. It's a bit of a curious one. Usually I'd either see the larger junk with a sort of a curved sail, or the smaller sampans that you tended to row around the harbour. So this one is somewhere in the middle, as I say, a little bit unusual. This is the only slide that we get from Kowloon side, everything else on or around the island. So to head back to the island, we're going to need to take a boat, of course. There's no MTR, there's no cross-harbour tunnel in 1960. So we've got two choices. If we're walking, I guess we'll probably walk to the right, head down to the Star Ferry. Or if we're driving, then we'll need to go left and head up to the Jordan Road ferry. This is where the Star Ferry will bring us. Or if we'd caught the vehicular ferry, we'd end up about here. So this is the view towards Connaught Road. This line of buildings are on Connaught Road, the seafront at this time. And the vehicular ferry is just out of sight behind us. Now this line of buildings here, these all date to the start of the 20th century, just after this land was newly reclaimed. And that makes them about 50, 60 years old, which in Hong Kong seems to be about the typical lifespan of a building. And you can see the first redevelopment has already started. This is the new Po Chun Chambers. They're 3 years old in this picture, and then during the next few years, several more of these will be knocked down and redeveloped. If we stood at this position today, we'd be standing near the end of IFC. So imagine that you're there, and if you turn to the left, you can walk over the footbridge into the Hang Seng building, and keep walking, walk through the central market, and that'll bring you over to Queen's Road, which in 1960 looked like this. So this low building at the very right edge here, this is the edge of the Central Market, and then just in here, this is where Jubilee Street turns off to the right. Anyway, let's follow the bus and the taxis heading off through the city off to the west. We're going to go out onto Potflam Road and we'll end up at a very popular tourist destination. So here we are at Aberdeen. Down in the foreground, we've got a dairy farm building. A dairy farm we might think of for ice cream, but they also have a more sort of commercial business, ice and cold storage. And of course, ice, an important thing for keeping the catch fresh if you're a fisherman. Lots and lots of boats in the harbour here. And then on the other side of the harbour, we've got some of those floating restaurants that we visited in a recent video. We've got a building with a very prominent 7-Up sign, so keep that in mind. And then up in the distance, this is Brick Hill, with a road running along it and a cluster of buildings here, which I can't say I've noticed before, or at least I haven't paid attention to. If you go there today, it's part of the Ocean Park site, but looking on some old maps from the 1960s, there used to be a training camp for the Urban Services Department, the USD, on this location. Here's a closer view of the boats in front of Aplejau. Here's that 7-Up sign that we saw a moment ago. And it's really a floating town. You can see the boats neatly lined up in rows. And so these are very much the streets just happen to be made of water instead of tarmac or concrete. Back over to Aberdeen side for a better view of the floating restaurants and what looks like lots of soft drinks in crates here waiting to be taken over to thirsty customers. Probably a bit too dark to be 7-Up, maybe a bottle of Coca-Cola instead. Continuing our journey then, we come to Repulse Bay. This grand building in the foreground. This was one of several palatial residences owned by a very wealthy man, or built by a very wealthy man, Mr. Yu Tong Sen in Hong Kong. We get a little glimpse of the old Repulse Bay Hotel here, but really the star of the picture is the beach. Repulse Bay and its beach it still is a popular place to go on a sunny day. Go for a swim in the sea here. It's busy, but it'll get a lot busier. This is one of the floating platforms, and I was looking at a picture just recently, and it was absolutely packed. It was standing room only on the platform there. Driving on again, and we come to this view of and it's one view that really hasn't changed a great deal. It still looks very similar today. Another popular beach location, not quite as busy as Repulse Bay was. You can see the car park mostly empty, not many people on the beach, so perhaps we've taken a picture in the middle of the week. Right, if we carry on our grand circuit of the island, we'll come back into the built-up areas at Sao Kei Wan. We'll go through Quarry Bay, through North Point, past Victoria Park, and then we'll arrive here. And this is the entrance to Causeway Bay, the built-up area. A very much entertainment district, so we've got lots of restaurants, shopping. This is one of the cinemas, Hoover Theatre over here. And across on the right, we can see an advertisement for another cinema. So this was Roxy Theatre, just here. Follow the tram lines along. And we arrive here. Yes, another theatre. This is the New York Theatre. It's on the corner of Percival Street, which is just about here. There's a footbridge across here, pedestrian footbridge, which you might know today. Lots of signs for the different businesses. Keep a couple in mind. This one here with the pointy corners, and this one here, which is a bit of a dumbbell shape, because our next photo, we switch to the nighttime view and some of Hong Kong's famous neon lighting. And if we look down here, this is that dumbbell shaped sign, and this is the one with the pointed corners. So we're very much the same part of Hong Kong, but we're looking in the opposite direction. So we're standing somewhere around Percival Street, New York Theatre on our left, looking back in towards Causeway Bay. Now still in night time, but a sort of a bird's eye view. We can follow that route we took. So the tram's coming along here. This is Victoria Park on the left. Tram along here. This tall building would be the Hoover building. Around here, and then this brightly lit area. So this is a busy part of town. This would be roughly where Sogo is today, but back in 1960, the big Japanese department store was Daimaru. And then this building here, this is the New York Theatre that we saw before. Down in the foreground, these dark patches, so these are areas that aren't built up. We've got Leighton Hill across here. We've got the Craigengower club here. Hong Kong Football Club, who've got their lights turned on, so we do actually get to see their pitch. And then over on the right, this is the edge of the racecourse. Get a better view of that in the next picture here, our daytime view. So here's the football club's pitch again, and here's the racecourse. The racecourse, of course, still with us today and even bigger. So the race track has now been extended around here so that it encloses the football club's pitches. Other landmarks down in the foreground, we've got the big cemeteries. So we've got St. Michael's over on the left and the Hong Kong Cemetery in the middle here. Across the way, a couple of old buildings. This is St. Paul's School still going, and just a glimpse of the tower of St. Margaret's Church here. Running up the hill, this road, this is Broadwood Road. It's been in quite a lot of discussions on the Gwulo website just recently, and way off in the distance, I can just see a pagoda here. So these should be the Tiger Balm Gardens. We've left Causeway Bay and Happy Valley to come over here to the Botanical Gardens, so back towards Central again. We've got the Governor's residence in front of us here. You can see this was a popular place to get dressed up, come for a stroll, maybe have a picture taken. The gardens give their name to Garden Road, which is just off to the right here. So if we head over there, downhill just a little way, down to the junction with Lower Albert Road. It's a traffic light junction today, but back in 1960, it had one of Hong Kong's unique traffic pagodas with a traffic policeman on duty here. Anyway, we're heading over to the Peak Tram station. We'll catch a tram up the hill. Here we are. So this is just coming to the end of our journey, and this is where we're heading to. So this is the old upper terminus of the Peak Tram line, and in front of it, this car park here, if you go there today, it's the open area in front of the Peak Galleria. So everything over here very different, but across the road things still look quite similar. So you can still find one of the old colonial post boxes on the corner here. And this building, it's had a change of name. It's not the Peak Cafe now, it's the Peak Lookout, but the building is still the same. It's still a cafe restaurant. It was originally built as a shelter for the men who carried sedan chairs or pulled rickshaws up here, just somewhere they could get out of the rain or the sun. Now my recommendation is that you head into the Peak Cafe, have a sit down, have a drink, have a little rest, and just wait for sunset. And then if you take a walk along Lugard Road at sunset time, it's one of the most beautiful views in Hong Kong, I think. And when you come back and the sun's gone down, you can admire the nighttime view from the peak. Now in the previous video, we looked at that curious rickshaw, and I talked about the problems of blurring caused by old cameras' long exposure times. And by long exposure there, I was talking about seconds, but for this scene, we're talking about minutes. So you can see the exposure is long enough that we capture the whole journey of a star ferry coming across the harbour here. That's what these wavy lights are. And over to the left, we even get the whole journey of a vehicular ferry coming here from Jordan Road all the way into Central here. But anyway, enough of the technical talk. Just, I think, take a moment to admire one of the world's great views here. And that brings us back to the start. Now, if you're watching this in the UK, a heads up, I'll be giving a talk in London on the 5th of April. I'll be showing off some of my favourite pictures and telling their stories. I'll put details in the comments below, and it'd be great if we can see you there. And in any case, I just say thank you very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you.